because we talked briefly about the book that I'm reading at the moment, Atomic Habits, the last day, and Louise suggested that I sort of talk a little bit more about it. And I suppose from the point of view of atomic, what it means, rather than like an atomic bomb, it's like being the smallest piece of matter, and that it builds and connects, and so the building blocks of the atomic matter build up to something really big. I haven't read that much of the book yet, but I'm finding it useful. And when he starts out, he talks about the British cycling team, which they've had a British cycling team since 1908, and they never got any results at all. And in the last Olympics, they nearly wiped the board. And in 2003, they hired a new cycling coach, and he started looking at minuscule improvements. So like changing their gear from outdoor cycling gear to indoor cycling gear, that would give them maybe a tiny bit of an improvement. Putting stuff on the tires so that they didn't grip the ground as much, so there was less friction. A whole lot of tiny little changes, as well as changes obviously in their cycling skills. This theory of 1%, that if you can make a 1% change in what you do, if you get just 1% better each day, that you'll end up with results that are 37 times better after 1 year. So to me, that sounded, pretty fantastic, to be 37% better after 1 year. And because one of the things I find it depends on the client. Some clients want to have great big hairy audacious goals and want to go for it like mad. And other people just want, that's way too daunting. And so what they like to do, or at least I've found, is just kind of the smallest little thing that they can do just to get the bit of momentum going. So if you want to ask any questions or throw in anything, go for it. And his kind of concept is that habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. And even just that phrase, I like that concept, that it's compound interest. So the compound interest of self-improvement. And he also talks about the aggregation of marginal gains. So by that, the example he uses is ice cubes. That if you have an ice cube sitting on your counter and the temperature is -5, nothing happens to the ice cube. And if it goes to -4, still nothing happens to the ice cube until it gets to +1. Then the ice cube starts to melt. And sort of he says that it seems like as though there's nothing happening, but actually then all of a sudden something happens. So it's this accumulation of the tiny little changes that you make, or the tiny little things that you do, that help to build performance and finally getting to the goal. And he also talks about that goals are fantastic, but actually that there's problems with goals, which is interesting from the coach point of view, because we're always on about setting goals. And he says there's 4 problems with goals. The first one is that both winners and losers often have the same goals. And what's the difference between the people who win and the people who lose? And usually the people who win are the people that have a solid system, a solid process that they take action on every single day. The second problem is that achieving a goal is just a momentary change. So once you've achieved it, you've achieved it. And what happens then? Do you stop doing whatever it is? So if, for example, it's about losing weight, if you achieve the goal, then do you stop and go back to your old ways? And the third problem he suggests is that goals restrict your happiness, because there's the if this then that thing that goes on. If I get my goal, then I'll be happy. So it's kind of postponing being happy, which doesn't seem like a great plan to me anyway. And the fourth thing is that your goals are at odds with long-term progress. So a bit like the second one, that if you get to the end of your goal and then you say, right, that's it, I'm done, you're not continuing your development. And so he suggests commitment to the process is the thing that determines your progress. And he
Isn't
looks...
this, Julie, isn't this an awful lot like lean, you know, where you
Yeah.
examine your process and make very small changes?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And eliminate all those extraneous things that don't need to be done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. And he also talks about sort of where you can make changes. You can make change in your environment that will maybe help you. And Alana was mentioning doing the one gratitude a day, and that she leaves her notebook open. So that's sort of an environmental change, and that's a trigger to write the gratitude. You can make changes in your processes, how you do things, the lean concept, and having those processes and systems in place so that it enables you to do the things effectively and efficiently. Making changes in your beliefs and values. Obviously, it takes a lot of thought and, you know, working out what are you telling yourself you can do, what are you telling yourself you can't do, what are you telling yourself is important to yourself. And finally, his big thing is making a change at your identity level. And that if you make the change at the identity level, then the change cascades down through all the rest of the levels. And so his concept is that if you, say, for example, you want to learn to play the guitar, not something I've ever wanted to do, but just say, for example, and that each day you sit down, you do 5 minutes of practice on the guitar, because the thing is about making it small enough so that it's easy to do it. And you get the satisfaction after doing it. And you say to yourself, I'm a musician. So you're telling yourself, this is who you are. This is the sort of person you are. And if you're the sort of person who's a musician, of course you're going to want to practice, because that's what musicians do. And so I'm sure as I get further into the book, I'll know a lot more about the identity thing. But even within NLP, these levels are also very much used from the point of view of supporting people in creating change. And so I created a little habit tracker for myself with just small habits that I want to develop at the moment, like keeping the exercise going, reading and making notes on it, journaling, which I've told myself I'm going to do forever. And one of the things he suggests is telling yourself to journal just one line. And then if you journal just one line every day, you can always tell yourself, I'm a writer. And wouldn't that be cool? And various things like that. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, I don't know if that's been of any use,